Hello everybody and welcome back to this week's episode of New Japan Pro Wrestling Weekly with your host Smoothman over here on the Bad Bookers Wrestling podcast channel. It's been a very busy week again with the New Japan Cup, and now we know who our winner is, and that is Kazuchika Okada. What a great tournament it's been, and being the first one that I've ever been able to watch in its entirety. There's been a lot of good wrestling on show. I'm going to quickly run through what happened during the quarterfinals, semi-finals and eventually the final. So let's get straight into it then, and we'll have a look at the quarterfinal matches. Our first match, Yoshihashi versus Tomohiro Ishii. This was a very good match between these two. Numerous occasions within the match, both men were exchanging really strong, different types of strikes, from chops to forearms, elbows, headbutts, etc. Yoshihashi, I think he was probably more of the underdog with this, but he gave a very gutsy performance against Ishii. He did try and prove that he was on a similar level and had that same strength as Ishii does. The shoulder tape was ripped off during the match, which has been heavily shown over the last couple of months with Yoshihashi's injury. It then led to a bit of an exchange where Yoshihashi then spat in Ishii's face because Ishii had ripped the tape off his shoulder. Yoshihashi looked to have won the match many occasions with big lariats and double knees for near falls. He looked to have definitely have won it after a Fisherman Buster. But in the end, it was Ishii who was probably the stronger of the two. It then ended with a near fall from Yoshihashi with a few quick strikes and a bit of separation, but Ishii got a lariat in for a near fall, but then immediately picked him up and got him into a vertical brainbuster for the win. That then meant Ishii would then go on to face the winner of the next match, which was OKADA versus Ospreay, and this is probably the most excited match I was looking forward to in the quarterfinals. OKADA and Ospreay are very known to be very good friends. They have a lot of respect for each other. They're both members of Chaos, and majority of the match from the start was all OKADA. There were occasions where Ospreay was able to be quicker than him, but in the end it was just the strength and the other kind of skills that OKADA shows. He's a very well-rounded wrestler. Ospreay looked to get back into the match where he followed up with a wrist hold flip bomb, so he got him into an electric chair hold in the corner and then was able to get to the probably middle and top rope and flip him over using his wrist, and it was then teasing stolen finishes between the two. Ospreay started to look good again. Robinson special, Oscar combo that he usually uses, but OKADA was able to reverse it into a catch German suplex. He then held on to set up a Rainmaker, but in true Ospreay fashion came out with a Spanish Fly, which is, as always, looks really cool. There were a couple of shooting star presses where it looked like, again, Ospreay was going to steal the win from OKADA, but OKADA was able to kick out. Oscar for a second time was met with a drop kick, and then OKADA was able to deliver tombstones. There was once again more finisher attempts, the Stormbreaker, but OKADA reversed it into a spinning tombstone, and then to ensure the win he picked up Ospreay and delivered a Rainmaker. It was a really nice end to the match, where both of them were just exchanging hugs and just being very respectful of each other. They're obviously very good friends, as I mentioned earlier, so that was quite nice. So therefore the semi-final would go into being Tomohiro Ishii versus OKADA, which I'll get onto in a moment. Sonata versus Colt Cabana was rather an uneventful match, in my opinion. Colt Cabana is a very funny guy. He's very technically gifted, but most of his kind of shtick is that he's very funny and does spots with the ref and Sonata where he's very much being snidey, reversals. He tried to do things where he was like outside the ring and saying, "No, I'm not getting in," and then Sonata tried to sit on the rope to allow him to come back in, but he walked around because he knew he wasn't going to fall for it and things like that. Sonata was having none of the pin attempts and surprise slick reversals. Cabana tried numerous times to use the Superman, which has won these matches in the previous rounds, but both times Sonata got out of it. The first time he rolled through and the second time moving completely. Sonata was just able to win with a skull end, which was probably shorter of the matches really on the quarterfinals, but it did what it had to do. Colt Cabana did what he does best, being very funny, and Sonata proving again that in New Japan Cup matches he's very good as a singles competitor. In the previous years, he's gone from quarterfinals to then a year later bettering himself and being in the semis. Was this the year that he could get to the final, which we will find out in a moment. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Tanahashi was very methodical as a quarterfinal match. Both men were looking to get the upper hand, but it was very much a case of whatever you can do, I can do better. So Zack Sabre Jr. is very much a gifted submission master. He worked on the arm, attacking it, was able to try and work submissions on those, but again had no luck to get the win. The match started to pick up some more momentum. The striking, Tanahashi with quick attacks, so he does his the sling blade, sentons, things like that. He did then get back into the match, did Zack Sabre Jr., because he slowed the pace down with submission holds. But there was a nice combination where Tanahashi used the ropes to get out of these holds as well. In the end, it was Zack Sabre Jr. trying to use the octopus lock with the ropes, but Tanahashi was able to turn it and breaking it, delivering 2 dragon screw leg drops using the ropes. And again, it was just lots of submissions after that. In the end, it was very much out of nowhere. So Tanahashi was trying to deliver a backslide pin. Tanahashi then used a reverse sling blade, so it was pretty much like a sling blade into a bulldog. And all of a sudden, he got into a Japanese leg roll pin where he kind of bridges, and all of a sudden he won the match with a quick 3 count, and it was very much a very annoyed Zack Sabre Jr. at the end of it. So that meant as we went into the semi-finals, we had OKADA versus Tomohiro Ishii, and then Sanada versus Tanahashi. We then got into the semi-final matches, which happened on the Saturday due to a very busy weekend at work, with lots of marking coming up. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to kind of watch these in their entirety. So what I did was I quickly went away and looked at some YouTube highlights. So we'll start with OKADA and Tomohiro Ishii. The match would look to be an absolute classic from start to finish. I read a tweet by Will Ospreay and many other wrestlers around the world who just said if you ever wanted to watch New Japan Pro Wrestling and see how well they work, this is one to watch. They were literally having a standing ovation back behind the curtain because it was such a great match. And it was, from what I could see, it was very fast paced. OKADA using his strength and speed against Ishii and his pure strength. Numerous occasions Ishii was able to deliver brutal headbutts. In the middle of the match there was a nice section where they both tried to deliver moves, and there were constant dodgers, and it looked very slick and really nice. A very cool segment indeed. OKADA looked to be the most fired up as the match progressed, and I think this was kind of year where we don't normally see OKADA in these New Japan tournaments because he's normally the champion and he needs to get to that final and win the cup so that he can go and take it to Jay White, and he was fired up definitely in this match. He delivered numerous tombstones and rainmakers to allow him to win the match. If this is just what the highlights are to go by, it's definitely a match to go and watch. If you've got New Japan World, go and watch it because it was really, really good. Again, the second match, the Sanada versus Tanahashi, I watched via highlights. The very much slower and more technical match compared to the other semi-final. Throughout the match, there were numerous attacks of each other's knees. It's very documented through the tournament that both their knees were injured in the past or has been worked on in the past, and therefore they used it to the storytelling of this semi-final. As the match progressed, the slow, methodical match started to pick up. Sling blades, sentons, those kinds of things. Sanada with his moonsaults. The end of the match saw both men try and get the win using pinning combinations and reversals. Tanahashi tried to bridge the pin hold like he did when he won the quarterfinal. But it was just, he was caught and dropped straight into a skull end where Sanada actually made him tap out. It's this time that he's now in the final. Sanada has obviously one-upped himself each year in the past 3 New Japan Cups, I believe. And this one is finally in the final. And I believe the final was actually going to be held in his either hometown or home county or whatever you want to call it over there. Then we got to the final night. That was today. So today, as we're recording, the Sunday. Before the final happened, we did have a New Japan IWGP US title match between Juice Robinson and Chase Owens. Just on a side note to that, it was literally a win for Juice Robinson. He overcame the Bullet Club with lots of interferences. After the match, Bad Luck Fale looked to attack Juice Robinson, but was saved by Mikey Nichols. Mikey Nichols, who's now part of Chaos. So he's still the champion as we move over towards the last couple of weeks before G1 Supercard over in New York. But the big main event, the 30-minute match between OKADA and Sanada, this was absolutely fantastic. Being a person who's seen Kenny Omega versus OKADA matches, I kind of knew what OKADA could do, but seeing Sanada in this match with OKADA was brilliant. It started off very slowly. The match picked up. You could tell from the beginning it was going to be a long match. It looked pretty much a straightforward win for OKADA. I think a lot of people thought this was going to be one where he could just stroll through, but with Sanada being in his hometown, he obviously wanted that win. Within the 15 minutes, the match started to pick up. It was clear that Sanada was going to do everything that he could to try and win. The crowd were very much behind him. And with the last 10 minutes of the match, this is where it got really, really cool. Lots of great exchanges, attempts to deliver finishes and signatures. There was an attempt to exchange each other's at one point, and Sanada was able to even reverse OKADA's tombstone into one of his own. Sanada looked to have overcome him with the skull end, but he was able to get out of it. There was a bit where they used kind of the kick pads or the corner pads for leverage to try and get out of each other's skull end attempts before OKADA then was able to deliver his own tombstone. OKADA looked to have lost the match. Sanada was going to deliver his moonsault, but in desperation, OKADA was literally nearly out after a skull end attempt. He just grabbed over his legs. Sanada was kicking him, trying to get a bit of a break between the two so he could actually get up to the top rope and do the moonsault. And again, last second, he pretty much grabbed the shoelaces of his boot and said, "No, you're not doing this." He got up, stopped the attempt, and was able to deliver two rainmakers. One which was like a 360 spinning rainmaker, and then the second, when he was down, he kept hold of his arm and picked him up. Again, if you haven't seen anything of New Japan ever in the last year and you think, oh, you know what, it's not as good anymore, Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, most of the Bullet Club or old Bullet Club have gone, therefore New Japan's not worth watching, you are completely incorrect. If you were to go watch this match, you would have changed your mind immediately that without these big name guys, Kenny, etc., the company's going to be fine. They are going to be definitely okay. OKADA, Sanada put on one of the best matches of the tournament. Tetsuya Naito and Kota Ibushi still putting on very good matches. Will Ospreay is starting to get more and more into the heavyweight division as he's transitioning. If you want to start watching New Japan now and think it's not as going to be as better as I've heard before, yeah, they will prove you wrong time and time again. So that means now with OKADA's win, he's going to Madison Square Garden on the 6th of April during WrestleMania weekend to face Jay White. There was a bit of a promo at the end where OKADA was saying, "I'm your winner. I can't wait to take the title off Jay White." Jay White then came out, got absolutely booed out of the building, as you'd expect. Gato did a bit of a promo just talking about how he's going to take Jay White's going to take OKADA to hell. And then Jay White did a little bit of a promo which wasn't overly good. He kind of got a bit flustered by the crowd a little bit because they continually booed him. But again, OKADA was very funny about it. Came and said, "Look, you think you're going to beat me? I'm going to take it off you," etc., etc. So that's concluding of the New Japan Cup. Been a very busy 3 weeks. I never realised how intense the wrestling is. All of them 3-hour shows. I didn't watch all of them all the way through, but for being a first time watcher of the New Japan Cup, I was very, very impressed. Really enjoyed it, and seeing OKADA win kind of makes sense. with the history between him and Jay White. Unfortunately, Will Ospreay couldn't win this year. Unfortunately, my biggest pick for the start of the tournament Tetsuya Naito, didn't win. But OKADA is probably the most logical point to take this into Madison Square Garden. So that's the end of the New Japan Cup, and that's the end of this week's New Japan Pro Wrestling Weekly video. What were your thoughts? What did you think if you watched the New Japan Cup? Are there any matches which stood out for you? Let us know down in the comments. If you haven't done so already, please go and subscribe to our YouTube channel down below. Leave a nice big thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and thank you very much for watching.